So I know this is not a very popular point right now, but I'm gonna go over some of the NBA things, and I'm gonna start with Detroit. So I'm honestly right now just looking a lot about the NBA scenery and just kind of looking at what's happening. As we know, yesterday Dallas had their first press conference with the guys that they signed. Obviously, they signed Klay. They signed Klay. They have Najee Marshall and they have Quentin Grimes, which are honestly that's an amazing three players to get in an offseason, especially for a team which now is going to have their point guard, their shooting guard, their small forward, and gonna have a backup guard which plays a lot of defense for rotational reasons. Meanwhile, also having Najee Marshall, a big man, being able to have and support. Dallas had this press conference, and as we know, they have completely um, revitalized their team as they have actually gotten better from last season to this season, not going over the second apron. And by the way, if you guys don't understand what that means, because this term has now been used a lot in basketball, that's just basically that they're spending too much money. Klay is going to use, and honestly, now with this new Dallas roster, I think that they have a very likely chance of being far in the playoffs again. As long as Klay can be a good catch and shoot shooter, he's not going to be dribbling much. And apart from that, Dallas, it plays a lot like Golden State in the sense that they're just going to have a lot of shooters there for the ball handlers who are doing that. And since they have Luka and Kyrie, which are the two best which is the best guard duo in the NBA. I think Klay Thompson's job is going to be pretty easy. They send a double on Luka, and then he has options from Quentin Grimes, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Kyrie Irving to pick out a shooter, and then there's a big man in the middle in case the paint is open. So I think Dallas is going to be pretty okay. If they don't like Klay, then they could just trade him because he's not a very expensive contract right now and just get other pieces. And Dallas already made the finals with a team that was kind of incompetent and looked kind of like they weren't full completely, as they had a lot of pieces which they relied on, which were very beat down pieces, and which were pieces that completely were not even secured to be with them for another season, like Derrick Jones Jr., which this season actually left Dallas. So I feel like that now having these guys under contract and being able to have some competency and being able to have some players and more stars now, or at least more firepower, and with this Klay situation for Dallas and everything, I feel like it's good. If it doesn't work out, it's easily fixable. Another thing I want to talk about is Detroit. Detroit has been making some moves this offseason, and honestly, they've been keeping under the radar because no one really cares about Detroit, and no one really thinks that they're going to be good. Me neither, but I also do think that we should shout them out because they are going to actually have an impact on the NBA with what they've done. First, Detroit is stealing a lot of teams' players. They're stealing, and by stealing, I just mean that they have enough money to sign them. They took Tobias Harris, which I honestly like a lot for them. He's a vet, and for their big men, I feel like his experience can be useful, especially to plan out for the future, and so they could learn something from them. Then, for a guy like Malik Beasley from the Bucks, he's going to Detroit, which I honestly think is good. He's going to provide some spacing and an actual reliable guard for Kate to play off of, not Killian Hayes or whoever they have in their lineup. I know Jaden Ivey is good, but when Jaden Ivey gets put on the bench for rest, they have literally nobody or basically nobody of competence. Not named Osar Thompson, but Osar has been playing a lot of small forward and power forward. And then they also signed K to his extension. His extension, I think, is $226 million, which is a really good number for Cade, but it could go up to $269 million in terms No, it's 224. I'm sorry, and then it could go up to 269. I feel like if he makes probably an NBA team, uh, if he makes an all-star team, and those are normally the clauses. If he reaches a certain points per game mark, I do feel like Cade is a very good player. He's been a very good person in Detroit, and honestly, he hasn't been a waste of a first overall pick, as he did look very promising. I just feel like there's three problems. First, he needs to improve like more, and he's two, he's a slow learner. It's obvious that he's gotten better every single season in terms of his assists, his points, his efficiency, and even like the non-tangible things like his turnovers have reduced, and his like personal fouls have also reduced. Those are things which are effective in a game of basketball. But I also do think that in terms of being a leader and being a point guard, he is eventually going to have to start putting up big numbers on a bad team, because he is on a very bad team and he's putting up mid numbers. This way, Cade can become like a star in the league. Maybe he doesn't have that in him, but he's getting paid like one now, so now the pressure is actually on. So, another thing that I do think will affect the NBA, apart from the Pistons, which, by the way, just to clear up that saga, I don't think that they're going to be good. I think that they're going to be much better than they were last season, but I still do think that they're going to tank. They lost James Wiseman, which is honestly pretty good, as they need to zero in on making Jalen Duren the number one center for them. And now they could just have their draft picks, and they have the fifth pick, which they got, which is Ron Holland. And in my opinion, now they just have a more competent, a better, a kind of fuller team to really rely on in terms of their like future, right? I feel like Detroit has made some good moves this offseason, and also they got veteran talent, which is always nice. Then the final thing I want to talk about are some contracts which I never got to speak of, or some things which I never really got to go in depth on, because honestly, with this offseason, as I said, I've been trying to make as least videos as possible when it comes to not talking about things that aren't important. Like, I want to talk about things that actually have meaning. If I have to make a video every day, then I will. If I only have to make a video every few days, then I will. And honestly, there are things that I just haven't covered because I do not think that making a whole video about them is good. And I explained that in another video, but whatever. A few of these things which I didn't cover, but I feel like are important, are like the Raptors are preparing to let Gary Trent Jr. go in free agency. Any team, especially a team like the Lakers or any contending team, would like Gary Trent on their team. He's a great shooter. He's a great player. He plays defense. And yes, he has been more inconsistent recently, but I do also feel like that's because of the role that he's now gotten in Toronto. Like, he's shooting 39% from three, 42% from the field. But the problem is that he has been a starter for basically the past years that he's been in Toronto, and then all of a sudden he gets delegated 30 games to go to the bench. It's been a big shift for him, especially this season. Another thing has been that Miles Bridges got a 3-year, $75 million extension, and that Caleb Martin got signed to the Philadelphia 76ers for 4 years, $32 million. That is a very big signing. Caleb Martin was a great player for the Heat. I do think that it is a lot of money, but I also do think that his big time performances have been crucial to the Heat's success and crucial to allowing the Heat to be in the positions that they were in terms of the finals, the conference finals, but also that has to do with coaching. But his play has been exceptional. And the 76ers, I really do like what they've done this offseason. In terms of the Miles Bridges thing, because I kind of skipped over that, because obviously, he has some problems, and I don't want to speak much about him because I don't think that this changes anything. As much as I do not like to see that this, like, this type of behavior being endorsed, he did have a good season. And if we're being honest about Miles Bridges, he's a solid NBA player. The only thing is that I don't feel like those allegations are ever going to escape him. And I feel like the things that he did are way worse than what he provides on the court. You know? So, yeah.